Thank you for the invitation from Jingren. And today I am a physician. I will combat different kinds of pathogen. So therefore, for me, no specific pathogen for a clinical doctor. So therefore, today this is a session for vaccine. I just want to find, is there an opportunity for vaccine for us to combat the pathogens circulation in this world? The ongoing transmission of the acute infections or the persistent infections. First of all, we will find the origin of infectious disease. We know that most of the time, the pathogen, they will go to the society of human beings. So the infectious disease not was there at the very beginning of the human evolution. However, because of the cultural evolution and lots of human beings gather and the pathogen goes to the society of human beings and there's outbreaks. There's an outbreak of the pathogens infection, just like COVID-19 you observed this time, but many times not the same type. Up to now, we have different types of infections. The ongoing infectious disease, including polio, smallpox eradicated already, and this is acute infection, keep circulation in the world. However, there's another kind of the persistent infection like HPV, HIV. HIV, we know that it jumped from animal model, from animal society to human society. I think just in around the 20th century, the very beginning of 20th century. But today we know that HIV only in human being society, but not in the animal world. So therefore, different kinds of infectious disease, the mechanisms, the persistent infection mechanisms, and the acute infection, the transmission circulation is totally different. So therefore, if we found any tools to combat infectious disease, we have to combat the pathogen very individually. Here, I just want to discuss about if there's the outbreak of a pathogen just like the influenza in 1918 or the 2019, the COVID-19, we will know that today there's outbreak, epidemic, then pandemic. But not always like that, just like SARS. SARS in 2003, there's outbreak, there's epidemic, but no pandemic in the end because the public health controls the disease in the end. So therefore, the style of the transmission of the virus is different. Even the coronavirus, very similar, but the outcome is different. Influenza, today we know that it's different from that we saw in the COVID-19. We saw that. Just like the question, how frequent the vaccination? Today we should give the vaccination to people. Once a year or twice a year. Actually, it's a question. So if there's a pandemic in the end, just like a pandemic this time for COVID-19, we know that. So in the end, we will get the herd immunity. Then it will go through to the endemic. But how can we go through very smoothly? Not so high mortality. So for long-termly, I will know that if there's an endemic for the infectious disease, the acute infection, they will keep the circulation of the virus around the society, just like smallpox. We know that smallpox actually is an endemic infectious disease. If we have no vaccine for that, actually, even today, we cannot eradicate the disease. But very lucky, we eradicate the smallpox by vaccine. Meanwhile, another very successful example, of course, is the polio, near eradication. But here we can say that this is a very traditional vaccine, including the inactivated or live attenuated vaccine, not the new vaccine today. But later, there's a protein subunit vaccine, just like HPV, also very successful for us to almost eradicate the disease. Today, we know that in the population under 3-year-old, the incidence of HPV infection, even in China, very low, less than 3 per 1,000 in China. So therefore, if you give us more 20 years or 30 years, I think we can eradicate HPV. So traditional vaccines very successfully. This is the example for polio, we know that. Because this vaccine, we combat the virus, almost they are DNA virus, smallpox, then the HPV. But this is the German measles, we know that. German measles, we give the very broad coverage of the vaccine, and the efficacy of the vaccine also is very good. But however, today we can still have a lot of stealth transmission of German measles around the world. Once we stop the vaccination in the human society, the breakthrough will be there. So the example is very successfully, we can see that in the United States. In China, up to now, we still keep a very strong coverage of the vaccination, but still there are sporadic cases. Why? Because transmission of the disease is very quick. Up to now, before COVID-19, German measles, it's the most quick, the quickest virus in the world. So we should give very broad coverage of vaccine and keep the very strong vaccination in the world. So this is a knowledge which we learned from the past. Meanwhile, even today, we know that there's still lots of RNA virus. There very high incidence in the world, just like the global dengue fever. This is incidence of dengue fever in the world. So therefore, if we use a traditional vaccine, we cannot do that. The very, very different serotype, the very different of the sequence of the virus. So therefore, we have to use a new vaccine for these pathogens. So today, there's a lot of viral vector new vaccine, just like there's several new vaccine now used in dengue fever already, but not so successfully up to now. The CYD TDV, we know, is almost the first conjugated attenuated live vaccine. The backbone of this vaccine is the yellow fever vaccine, the yellow fever virus. So they include 4 serotypes of the dengue fever. But in the end, it's not so successful because of there's a lot of potential ADE in this vaccine. So later, there's a TAC-003. This is a product by Takeda. Is a company. They use attenuated and charismatic viruses using the recombinant DNA technology. So I think it's very similar, like we use a vector and a different serotype gene of the virus. So up to now, the global distribution of clinical trials for dengue fever vaccine, this is what I labeled here as a lot of, lots of clinical trial there. But we still have very high dengue fever incidence around the world. That means it's not so successful like what we achieved in HPV, achieved in polio, we achieved in the smallpox or German measles. So this time we know that there's a COVID-19. I think COVID-19 after 1918, it's other case of the perfect storm of pandemic around this world. Around this 100 years, I cannot give you another case like COVID-19, so similar like the pandemic of the influenza like that. So therefore, this time, if we do not have a vaccine, we can imagine that maybe the mortality, it will be much higher than today. So if there's the leaking from the animal model world, then they jump to the human being, the expansion in the human society, they will be give us a very big pandemic. The pandemic, I think, the medical resource, it will be not enough, and lots of people will die. So what we could do is just give a very effective vaccine at a very short duration. If we give the long time, just 6 months or 1 year, for the very strong restriction of our mortality of the people, or economic growth, I think it would be stopped. So therefore, we should give the effective vaccine as soon as possible. So this time, only during the COVID-19 duration, we have lots of new virus. Just I will know that DNA vaccine, of course, the most successful it will be mRNA vaccine, the viral vector vaccine, and the viral-like particles. Everything now have go to in the clinical trial stage. Of course, here we can know that the Carico, there is BioNTech and Bonetta in the United States and in the Europe, they have launched the very successful mRNA vaccine. So after that, after the COVID-19, today we use this technology to combat the tumor, to combat the tuberculosis. Actually, recently we have lots of collaboration with BioNTech to use mRNA vaccine to combat the tuberculosis in the future. So the strategy here for us, for prepare for the future, I think we meet the pandemic again. I think we have to have a vaccine, very effective, very quick, very strong vaccine to flatten the curve of the pandemic. Then we set up the herd immunity. Then we go through the pandemic and go smoothly to the endemic region. So during the pandemic, we have done lots of job to evaluate the efficacy of the vaccine. But soon we know that there's a lot of variation of the vaccine. The immunity set up by the vaccine decreases quickly. At the first stage, it decreases the antibody level, decreases after 6 months. But later, the neutralizing the efficacy effect decreases very quickly, even as early as 4 months. So once Omicron emerged, we know that the neutralizing antibodies, the efficacy is so low. So therefore, if we just give vaccine once a year, I think it will be not enough. So today we know that the COVID-19, the coronavirus infection endemic, but not a seasonal infection, just periodically. It will be fluctuated with the antibody level with us. So this paper, so we published it in cell host microbes, and after 2 years, we know that it's almost the high citation paper because we observe the variation and the neutralizing efficacy and the antibody level. So lastly, we know that the frequency of the vaccination time, I think, is actually not like that, like the influenza. Once 1 year is okay. So today, I think maybe half a year can be prevent the infection. So the immune protectiveness for the vaccine at the very early stage, we know that almost half year, half of the patient can still keep the immune protectiveness of the vaccine. That means if we will open the world after the vaccination, I think we have to give the vaccination as soon as possible during the 6 months. So in the future, I think the COVID-19, it's a so quick virus, the coronavirus SARS-2. I think if we merge, if there's another quickest virus like the COVID-19, the cause COVID-19, the coronavirus SARS-2, I think it should be rare. It's so quick, the most quick virus in the world. But if we meet the so quick virus, I think the next time, we need to know how long the vaccine can give us protectiveness. Then this is the best time window for us to open the world. But after the vaccination and open the world, we get a lot of natural infection in the world. What should be done in the future? So we do observe the immunity, the protectiveness for COVID-19 in the future. Should we give the vaccination once again and again or not? Actually, up to now, we just know that. So we have to set up the hybrid immunity with the vaccine as a base. Then different times of the natural infection, we will set up the hybrid immunity. So this is what we can do in the future. If our immunity is strong and not the compromised immune patients, I think maybe we do not need give the vaccination frequently. But if the fragile patients, up to now, I still recommend they can be given the vaccination twice a year of course, the nasal vaccine, it will be more convenient. Nobody will agree to go to the hospital except half 6 months and give an injection for that. So in the future, I think COVID-19 changed a lot. Of course, as heterogeneous in the new vaccine, I think this time for us to go out of the pandemic is very important. In Hong Kong case, this is the Hong Kong case, they give 2 dosage of the inactivated vaccine, then give a booster of the mRNA vaccine. The antibody, the neutralizing antibody is very high. I think this keep the Hong Kong went through the pandemic safely. So I think this experience is also very important. So the neutralizing the heterogeneous vaccination strategy helps. So today, I think all around the world have almost the same conclusion. If we can give the 100-day mission, this proposal gave the G7 countries, and meanwhile, later in G20 countries, the Sir Valence Patrick, last time in the Royal Society of United Kingdom, I met him last time. They also invited us to attend this mission. But however, I think we still need a large job to do to the whole world to work together. So 100 days, have the vaccine, have the drug, have the diagnostic tools. I think this is a mission, what we should do in the future, prepare for the pandemic. If we have prepared very well, I think we can, so I think the wave of the pandemic, it will be lower and very smoothly, and we will go to the endemic, from pandemic to endemic very smoothly. And this is strategy, I think everybody now today, actually, they accept that. But this is an acute infection. But how about the persistent infection? I mean, up to now, there's a lot of tuberculosis in the world. Recently, I published a paper for the subclinical tuberculosis in the world, how to combat the hidden threat of subclinical tuberculosis, how to protect them. They will not accept the treatment. So therefore, we have to give a lot of strategy to combat the persistent infection like tuberculosis. If we have no strategy for combat the persistent infection, the tuberculosis, the epidemic, it will be ended for a long time, 100 years. But however, the WHO just give us the goal for 10 years. Before 2035, they want worldly, we have to eliminate the epidemics of tuberculosis. I think it's almost impossible if we have no novel vaccine for that. So the blue curve just means if we have the new technology, I think we can do that. If no new vaccine, no new treatment, no new diagnostics for the subclinical latent tuberculosis, I think we cannot do that. So this is recently some new vaccine for tuberculosis. mRNA vaccine, the virus vector vaccine, and also I think some traditional, the polluting vaccines for that. So another persistent infection is very important here in Asian country is chronic hepatitis B. Up to now, in China, we still have 80 million. We have 80 million carrier for the HPV in China. So we only, for the vaccine, we just prevent the newborns, but recently we still have to deal with the HBsAg carrier, how to deal with these patients. Of course, we have lots of treatment, just like we have we have lots of the nucleotide to inhibit HBV DNA replication. Meanwhile, recently, we still have a lot of drug to stop the translation of the HBV RNA and stop the HBsAg level. But how to restore the immune response, the T cell function still remained a big problem. So today, there's lots of ongoing trials for functional cure in the world. They have to combine the directly acting agents, and meanwhile, we have to use the immune enhanced, the therapeutic vaccine or some other immune treatment for that. So this is the best drug in the world, recently published in New England Journal of Medicine, the ESO So for chronic hepatitis B infection, even the best drug, we still cannot eradicate the HBsAg in our human body, just less than 30%. How can we do that in future? We have to use some new vaccines. Recently, we have a new vaccine, I mean the therapeutic vaccine, we just combined with the direct acting agents and give the treatment. We treat some patients. We can see that there's a monotherapy of therapeutic vaccine can decrease HBsAg. However, the combination therapy in the future, I think, is needed for that. So recently, there's the therapeutic plus PD-1 inhibitor for that. So in the future, I think, for the acute infection circulation in the world, like influenza, COVID-19, meanwhile, the persistent, the chronic infectious disease, we have lots of strategies. The future research direction including developing more broad spectrum and safe vaccine using novel biotechnology, and then meanwhile, new adjuvant technology to increase the strength of the vaccine, and with deepening understanding of the vital mechanism and the application of new technology for us to hope we can give a greater breakthrough in the prevention and the treatment of current and emerging infectious disease. Thank you.
Thanks for the wonderful talk. Thank you for the insights and perspective. I'll use my privilege as the chair to ask a question. Since you mentioned the urgency of having a new TB vaccine, I'm a TB biologist, so I was curious about this new biotech mRNA vaccine, because we all know TB is a T-cell problem and need a T-cell vaccine. Do you see evidence that the mRNA vaccine has the potential to do that?
Yes, up to now, with the mRNA vaccine only stay in the animal model level, and now step into the phase 1, phase 2 clinical trial. The mRNA, I think it can increase the T-cell function. So therefore, according to the current some limited data, I think it's almost one of the most effective new vaccine in the future for use for treating the latent tuberculosis. Recently, there's a popular paper for a protein subunit vaccine for treating the latent tuberculosis. The product from GSK, and they published a paper, just 50% of the latent tuberculosis can be prevented to develop to active tuberculosis. So therefore, in the future, maybe the mRNA vaccine, it may be better. However, we still more data for that.
Thank you. Does the audience have 1 to 2 quick questions for Dr. Zhang? If not, thank you so much for the wonderful talk, Dr. Zhang.